I still remember the exact moment everything inside me went quiet. It was a warm Sunday afternoon, the kind that usually softened people. But in my house, softness rarely existed, especially when all three of us were at the dining table. Mom had prepared her special biryani, the same one she only made when Amber, my older sister, came home to visit, because of course perfection followed Amber. She was the golden child, the one who made no mistakes, the one who shone so brightly that apparently no one could see me standing right behind her. Amber had bought a house recently, a big one, a grand one, and she made sure we all knew it. So, Amber, Mom chirped, almost glowing with pride as she poured her morrata. Tell us again about the kitchen, the Italian marble one. Amber smirked as if reciting a victory speech. It's custom, designed, imported. The designer said only people with a refined taste choose it. Mom laughed loudly, placing a hand dramatically on her chest. Refined taste, that's my daughter, my pride. Then, just when the laughter softened, Mom turned to me, and the warmth in her eyes vanished. And you, Ion, she asked, her tone suddenly flat. Still renting that tiny portion. When will you ever get your own house? She didn't wait for my answer. She never did. Instead, she leaned back and said the words that settled inside me like cold iron. You'll never own a house like your sister. Amber didn't even pretend to hide her amusement. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, chin lifted. Her smirk cut deeper than any insult. Maybe one day, if you get lucky, she added. But honestly, some people just aren't meant for big things. Their words didn't hurt instantly. They floated around me first, then slowly sank in, pulling something heavy inside my chest. I looked down at my plate, trying to swallow the bitterness rising in my throat, but I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't even look up. Instead, I quietly reached for my phone under the table. My fingers typed just 5 words to a name saved under Project Lead. R. Is everything ready for tomorrow? Within seconds, the reply came, yes, all documents finalized. A warmth, a different kind, spread through me, not pride, not ego, something quieter, something patient. I slipped the phone back in my pocket and lifted my head slowly. Amber was still smirking. Mom was still shaking hers. They had no idea that while they mocked me over a house, an entire future none of them could imagine was already waiting for me. And for the first time in years, I wasn't hurt. I was calm, dangerously calm. Some betrayals don't happen suddenly. They happen slowly, drop by drop, until one day you look back and realize the people who were supposed to protect you were the ones holding the knife. Growing up, Amber was the sun of the house. Everything revolved around her. Birthdays, achievements, even her favorite foods shaped our weekly menu. I wasn't jealous, at least not at first. I believed that love wasn't a competition. I believed that parents love quietly, even if they don't show it the same way. But childhood has a way of teaching you what adults try to hide. I remember being 10, excited about a school art competition. I had stayed up all night making a model house from cardboard. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. That morning, I showed it to Mom, hoping for at least one smile. She barely glanced at it. I don't have time for this. Help your sister iron her uniform, she'll get late. Amber walked past me, her hand brushing the model. It fell and broke. She didn't even look back. Mom yelled at me. Why didn't I keep it in a safe place? Mom always found a way to blame me. Years later, when Amber wanted to start a small online boutique, she needed help with designing her website. I spent 2 months building it for her. Late nights, headaches, code errors, everything. And when it finally launched, she held a family gathering to celebrate. She gave a speech, proudly saying she built everything herself. I clapped the loudest, just to keep the peace. But the real twist came from Mom. I once applied for a scholarship abroad. The interview panel needed character references, so they called home. I didn't know until years later. Mom told them I wasn't responsible enough to live alone in another country. She said she only did it because she didn't want me to struggle. But the truth was simple. She couldn't imagine me surpassing Amber. Those moments collected inside me like stones in my pockets, every memory heavy, every insult sharper. Every comparison another cut, but I didn't break. Instead, I learned to become silent. Silent when Amber took credit for the photography business I helped her start. Silent when Mom told relatives not to expect too much from me. Silent when Dad nodded along, as if disappointment was my identity. But silence is dangerous. It listens, it observes, it prepares. Because while they were busy dimming my light, I was slowly building something behind the curtains. Skills, partnerships, savings, opportunities, brick by brick. I was no longer the boy who broke down when they broke my cardboard house. I was a man quietly preparing to build a real one. A bigger one, a better one, and this time no one would be able to break it or me. The night after that family dinner, I couldn't sleep. Not because their words hurt, I was far past that, but because I knew what tomorrow would bring. A turning point. A shift, a quiet storm finally ready to break. For years, I had been pouring every free hour into one dream. Not a loud dream, not one I flaunted like Amber flaunted her new marble kitchen. Mine was the kind of dream that grows in darkness, silent, steady, unseen. I worked small jobs, freelance projects, night shifts, anything that paid. Every rupee I saved, every skill I learned, every connection I built was a brick towards something bigger. And that something bigger was now complete. The text I had sent during dinner wasn't random. Is everything ready for tomorrow? That message was to Raheel, a developer I had met 5 years earlier when he was just starting out. He had been looking for investors. Everyone laughed at him. Even I only had small savings at the time, but unlike everyone else, I believed in him, and he believed in me. I invested everything I had, not much but enough. Over the years, our partnership grew, slowly, quietly, carefully, and in return for my unwavering faith, my investment converted into something I never expected. Major ownership. Now his project, a luxury housing scheme, was finally complete, and the biggest, most expensive house wasn't bought by any millionaire. It was mine, signed, registered, paid in full. When I arrived at the site the next morning, the sun was rising behind the newly built houses. The air smelled of wet concrete and fresh beginnings. Workers were polishing the front entrance. Glass windows glimmered like mirrors, reflecting a future I had only dared to dream. Raheel walked toward me, grinning widely. "Ready?" he asked. I nodded, but inside, something twisted relief, pride, disbelief, grief, all tangled together. He handed me a folder, final documents. "Congratulations, Ian, not just for the house, but because you earned this alone." I opened the folder. My name printed in bold. Owner. For a moment, the world blurred. I saw flashes. Mom saying I'd never own a house. Amber laughing behind her hand. Years of silence, sacrifice, humiliation, and now, this, a home bigger than Amber's. A property worth more than everything my family ever owned. A success no one saw coming. I walked inside the house. Empty walls, clean floors, sunlight spilling in through the tall windows. It felt unreal, like stepping into a life that was always meant for me, but hidden until now. I stood in the living room, letting the quiet fill me. Tomorrow, I would invite my family. They would come thinking I was just helping, just assisting, just average, but tomorrow they would learn who I had become. The next morning arrived with a strange calmness, like the world itself was holding its breath. I texted my family in the group chat. "There's an opening ceremony today. I'm helping with arrangements. You all should come." I knew those words would shape their expectations perfectly. Mom replied instantly, "Okay, make sure you behave properly in front of important people." Amber reacted with a thumbs up emoji. Even after everything, they hadn't changed. I reached the site early. Guests, investors, and media were already filling in. Banners hung proudly announcing the completion of Emerald Heights housing project. But only one banner mattered today, the one that read Founding Partner, Ian Khan. I had insisted it be kept covered until the right moment. When Mom and Amber arrived, they looked around, impressed but pretending they weren't. Mom clicked her tongue. "Such a nice place. Shame you couldn't get a job in a project like this. Maybe next time." Amber smirked. "Maybe he's here to serve tea or something." Their words didn't cut any more. They simply echoed in an empty place inside me that used to hurt. Raheel approached, cheerful as always. "Ian, everything's ready." Mom's eyebrows shot up. "You know the developer?" Raheel laughed warmly. "No, he's the reason this project exists. Before they could ask more, the ceremony began. People gathered. Cameras turned. Microphones were arranged. Raheel stepped forward to give the official announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, today we celebrate not just a project, but a partnership one that began with faith when no one else believed. This entire housing scheme was funded, designed, and envisioned because of one man. He paused, smiling. A man who invested when we were nothing. A man who built this with us. A man who owns the largest house here. He pointed toward me. Mr. Ayan Khan. The crowd clapped. Some cheered, but Mom froze. Amber's smirk vanished like smoke. Mom whispered, Ayan. Amber blinked rapidly. This must be a mistake. It wasn't. Raheel unveiled the banner. My name bold, clear, untouched. Mom's face paled. Amber swallowed hard. They stared at me as if seeing a stranger. I walked toward them quietly, calmly. You own this? Mom finally asked. I nodded. Yes, the biggest house here. I didn't know, she stammered. That's because you never asked. I replied softly. Amber stepped closer. Ayan, we didn't mean. I held up a hand. I'm not here to fight or to prove anything. I just needed distance, respect, and a place that was truly mine. Their eyes filled with regret. Maybe guilt, maybe something else. I didn't stay to figure it out. I simply walked into my new home and closed the door behind me, not loudly, not angrily, but gently. Because the sweetest revenge is peace.